Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anne Webber and I'm a retired priest associate at St Philip's in Rochester. If you're like me, during this time of pandemic and shutdown, I've really missed in-person worship and coffee hour, the opportunities we get to chat together and get to know one another, to form community. To help with that, Father Eric has invited parishioners to contact each other by phone, preferably, each week during Lent, and to pray for one another. There is a list which should have been emailed yesterday, and randomly selected parishioners have been put together. Now, we're not used to talking on the phone so much nowadays. We're more used to emailing and texting and doing all the digital stuff. But really, it's lovely to hear another person's voice. And some of our parishioners are really socially isolated, and if they're like me, old, they're not up to scratch on all the technology that's around. So talking on the phone and creating a relationship requires us to listen in a way that perhaps we're not used to anymore. We're so used to multitasking and doing multiple things at once that we really don't focus on one thing. So we have some little guidelines to help with the art of listening. There's a Cuban proverb which says, "Listening sounds easy, but it's not simple. Every head is a world." What that means is that we bring to our listening our worldview, our unique perspective on situations and issues, and we often interpret what we hear through that worldview without being aware of it. What we need to do when we really listen to another person is to try and let that go, not pass judgment, but be fully present to the person we're listening to. Now, sometimes that requires us to reflect back what we've heard, because we don't all receive and give words in the same context or the same meaning. Particularly me being a Brit, there are lots of words I use which have a different connotation in England than they do in America. So we can reflect back to the person we're listening to what we think we've heard them say to clarify the situation, and we use our own words. That helps us be on the same footing. The other thing to do to let them know that they're really getting our full attention is to practice what's called active listening. Now, that's more difficult when we're on the phone because we communicate mostly by body language. And when we're not able to see the person we're in conversation with, we have to rely on the sound and tone of their voice. And they have to rely on perhaps us during their conversation making affirmative, just very quiet little noises like or whatever's appropriate to the situation. And perhaps at the appropriate time, asking questions that will help us understand each other. Being fully present to one another is a gift. It's called the sacred art of listening. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer says the first service that one owes to others in fellowship consists of listening to them. Just as love to God begins with listening to God's word, so the beginning of love for our brothers and sisters is learning to listen to them. Perhaps we can all manage to do that when we have our conversations, to build relationships and community. And remember that we're not judging, we're not trying to think of what we're going to say in response while we're listening. We're being fully present to that person and letting them know that we're hearing them. So many of us think we're listening, but we don't actually hear what is being said or what is not being said. And in being fully present to somebody, we're offering them the gift of sacred presence, which is something that we all need during this time, and it helps build a beloved community. There are some guidelines, an acronym, which are often used during meetings, especially in a church situation, and it's called respect. And it's worth having these in mind when we're talking to people we don't know or don't know very well. R equals take responsibility for what you say and feel without blaming others. E, use empathetic listening. That's roughly what we've been talking about. Active listening, being totally present, non-judgmental, reflective, making sure you clarify what you hear. S, be sensitive to differences in communication styles. P, ponder what you hear and feel before you speak. E, examine your own assumptions and perceptions. C, keep confidentiality. And T, trust ambiguity, because we're not in the conversation to debate who's right and who's wrong. We're in the conversation to build bridges, build community, open our minds to different perspectives than our own, and practice it all with God's love. Happy listening. Bye-bye.